There's a few different ways to embellish the outside of your bag before you start sewing it, and I'm going to talk about a few of them. The first one I want to talk about is the option of using printable fabric or doing some hand embroidery. I just want to really quickly touch on the printable fabric one. You can buy printable fabric at the craft store. Each brand is a little bit different in how you work with it, but pretty much you're going to pull up the PDF on your computer, and there's a page that says for printable bag front print, and you're just going to go ahead and load the printable fabric into your inkjet printer, run it through the printer, and then treat it the way it says to on the package decoration, the package outside, so that you know how to set the ink so that it doesn't run. And then you're just going to go ahead and finish the bag the way you normally would after you do that. If you wanted to add a little bit of extra embellishment to the front, this is just cut out, iron-on vinyl, and you can buy that at the craft store too. Just cut it out and iron it on. Really simple. So that's just wanted to mention that to you. But the one we're going to talk about a little bit more is the embroidery for the front. So the pattern comes with two hand embroidery patterns. There's the bunny face and then the clock, and you can kind of choose which one you want to do. In your pattern, you'll see also it'll say that there's the embroidery pattern. So you're just going to print out the page of the embroidery pattern, which I've got the bunny one here, and you're just going to, this is where you're going to want to use your light box. If you don't have a light box, just find a sunny window and tape this up with that. So you're going to pull that on there, and then I like to use white fabric for this part, but I don't like to use just solid white fabric. So what I've done here is I've got the Riley check white on white, and I feel like it just gives another extra layer of dimension on what would have otherwise just been a plain white bag front. So you're just going to take that, and then I've got one kind of already started here. So I'm just going to lay my fabric over the top. You just want to cut a piece of fabric bigger than your bag piece. Oh, and I forgot to mention too, these two embroidery patterns are only available for the 8-inch size bag. So I think I've probably got about a 12 by 14 piece of fabric. Just make sure it's bigger than your piece. And you do not want to cut the circle out first. You want to embroider first. Then I'm just going to use my Frixion pen, and I just come in here and I'm just outlining where I want to do my embroidery. And then I go ahead and mark the outside of the circle, just so I know when I go to cut the piece out where to line it up to make sure that the bunny face is right in the center of the bag. Okay, so now that we're done with that, you can go ahead and put that aside, and then we need to go ahead and embroider it. So you're going to need an embroidery hoop. It doesn't matter the size as long as your fabric fits in it. This is a 9-inch hoop. And I'm just going to go ahead and get this in here. It doesn't have to be perfect. This is not permanent. This is just embroidery hoop for the purposes of working with it. And so I used to do a lot of hand embroidery and cross stitch when I was younger, and I stopped because I was getting frustrated, and it took me a little while to realize that the reason I didn't like it anymore is because I couldn't see it. So now I have reading glasses, so I put these on so I can see my thread so much better now. So you're going to want to go ahead and use 3 strands of embroidery floss in an embroidery needle, and I'm going to show you how to separate these strands out, because I know sometimes when you go to separate them out, they get kind of tangled. So you're just going to pull your thread out. Okay, so you've got 6 strands here to work with. Normally, most people would take it and they would pull sideways, but that's not what to do. You want to pull them straight out. So grab one, keep your thumb on the rest, and pull straight up. And just want to do that until you get 3 pieces pulled out, because you don't want super thick lines. That's why you're only using 3 strands of floss. And then you can go ahead and put this one aside to use later. And then you're just going to take all these pieces, line them back up, make sure it's smooth, and then feed it through a needle and tie a knot at the end. And I've got one already started here. Okay, so here I've got my needle with my 3 strands of embroidery floss and a little knot at the bottom. Okay, so what we're going to do is just what's considered a simple back stitch. So you're going to go ahead and pick a spot to start. So we're going to start right here at the end of this whisker. I'm going to come in from the back, and I'm going to do about a 1/4 inch stitch. So I'm going to stitch 1/4 inch. Okay, and then we're going to do, since it's called a back stitch because you're going to work backwards. So instead of coming up where I went in, I'm going to come up about a 1/4 inch further along and come up, and then I'm going to go ahead and go back to where that other one ended. so that I've got that. And then for the next stitch, I'm going to start right there. Go ahead and advance it forward that 1/4 inch, and then come right here, 1/4 inch further, and go back. And you'll notice as you get working that it's just you'll get in a nice rhythm. It's a really simple stitch to do. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to fill in the whiskers, and then I'm just going to do the same thing but go back and forth across the eyes. And then for the bunny face, I did use a little bit of pink for the nose, and if you're doing the clock face, it would be kind of fun to use a little bit of gold embroidery. So that's how you're going to make the embroidered face for your bag if you want to. The next thing we're going to talk about is if you want to use a quilted fabric exterior for your bag.